Well, hello. Caught me by surprise. Took a while to load up there. Welcome to my cellar. Got a lot of stuff to talk about and questions to answer. Actually, a couple of them are just really long. Okay, going back to what we let off with last week was do dragons stink? Got a couple responses in here to that point. And this individual says that dragon sickness is when dragons lay on treasure for so long they put an effect that works like a curse on it. The effects vary. One effect is owner of the treasure will not spend any of it no matter what. Well, yeah, that's a it's not an original idea, no offense. The curse of a dragon's gold, yeah. There's a lot of literature references to that. But aren't you just kind of screwing with the players? If they manage to, get to the point where they can track down a dragon and somehow defeat it or outwit it or whatever and get the loot only to have it be cursed, what's the point? Kind of, I don't know. I would feel I was cheating my players if I did that to them. I think my old players would have felt I cheated the hell out of them too. Okay, next one. Seems like DMs are becoming fond of outsourcing, even though it should be easier to DM with a computer than by handwriting. +1 painting Oh, okay, they like the painting segment. I was teaching 5th graders and up in New York at the gaming store as a trusted volunteer. I learned not to say no to their budding imagination. However, when they wanted to play a bugbear, this was 3.5 edition, I insisted they have to buy the Humanoid's Handbook as well as a mini, and until they could prove to me that they knew the handbook entries for Hobgoblin and Bugbear and had written up their proposed characters' prehistory, they had to play a human barbarian. That's some weird arm twisting. The bookstore liked this, well, I'm sure he did, as any child that wanted to play something not in the player's handbook had to spend an extra $20, which almost, oh, I see, which almost all divorced dads were willing to shell out. This worked out quite well, as playing the barbarian put them closer to the alien mindset of the bugbear. On that note, high schoolers need that even more so because they've had anime to make their imagination conform to pop culture, which may be political in nature. Once potential players are past college, they've more often been exposed to the rich variety of philosophies available. I began in 3rd grade. My brother was in the 10th grade, and Moktig the Hobbit had a 2-handed sword and more gear than a bug-out backpack. My brother killed me with skeletons first encounter. Nicely, he was my brother, and then I listened to him better. By his senior year, I could play with the 9th graders who were starting up, knew my maths and my turns. Yeah, that's certainly an interesting way to drive business to your friendly local game store. Did you get a cut? But it's not a bad idea to make them invest in the knowledge that they had to acquire to do that, because they'll have a much better understanding of the system. Oh, here we go. Tim, you mentioned you created your own world to run games in. Would you mind sharing some details about it? Thanks for your videos. Okay. Yeah, actually, Silmarillion style, I thought. I wrote up a lot of the back history of my world, and I believe I shared a lot of that on Dragon's Foot, dragonsfoot.org, and I have a very, very large thread on there, and I often shared stuff like that. Sometimes it would be just a block of of copy with a title on it. So I don't know. I think I shared a lot of that. I went back and had the various ages and how the most recent cataclysm to hit the or to affect it was the Sundering. Some magician got way too curious and unleashed powers that broke apart continents and changed the way magic works in the world, giving high magic zones and low magic zones, and most of the world is just normal. Um, and how there were these various periods after the sundering of the evil races, and then hunted almost entirely exterminated what we consider the good races, and then how various movements came about that reestablished. And yeah, I wrote a lot of that stuff. I think it's in dragonsfoot.org. If somebody goes there and says they read it all and didn't find it, then I guess I'll dig it up somewhere. Um, it was just at a point in time when I was writing a bunch. Okay, now this is an odd request. This individual would like me to name a character. They think it'd be a big honor to have me name a character for him. Now here's the character: a forest gnome ranger whose goal in life is to tame a wild-caught boulet. Well, let's see if I was going to name him optimistic, um, foolhardy. Um, um, you really want a name, huh? Well, I think I'd call him Optio. Optio was a rank in the Roman army, and it's from the same root as optimist and optimistic. And anybody that wants to catch a wild caught boulet and tame it, it's definitely loaded with optimism. Okay, next question. Do you use weather in your game? The storms in the movie Red Sonja come to mind for me. Well, again, yeah, you can do it, but inflicting bad weather on the players is just screwing with them. And I don't know to what end. Um, it's hard enough to get players to adventure outdoors anyway. If you keep throwing crappy weather at them, they're never going to go outdoors. Of course, yeah, we know that's not true, but I don't know. When I've set up encounters, I have occasionally taken into effect humidity or rain. Um, Not much more. No random lightning bolts or torrential downpours that flood all the crossings or anything like that. Um, Fog once in a while as a curious phenomenon that's rooted in that area, but that's more of a wizard fog than a meteorological fog. I just don't see a need. Um, it's tough enough being a player character and succeeding. And after all, um, as a DM, we're there to be the arbiter, the neutral, yes, it works, no, it doesn't type guy, the umpire. And throwing the weather in, I don't know. I just think that's an undue burden on the players. Um, Now in minis games, that's a whole different story because many weapons or many battles were fought in history in foul weather, um, and it's had an effect in that event. Fields too wet for cavalry, powder not dry enough to be useful, um, rain dampening bowstrings, high winds ruining archery. That's certainly been factors in battles, but I it's hard enough, if you're shooting arrows at the bad guys at a distance, 60, 70 yards, it's hard enough to hit them with calm weather. I don't think as DM we need to make it even harder by having their arrows blown off course. That's just me. Okay, all right. Here's I don't know, this individual is truly deranged. This is the person that thinks that there's a gelatinous cube. Dungeon odors are in the effects. Well, we gelatinous cubes have +3 smelling, so we learn to like disgusting scents as acquired taste. Just to clarify, despite our 3-star chef-like olfactory system, we gelatinous cubes rely upon an acute sense of feel to find prey, as almost any movement in a dungeon tends to make us wobble, so we follow the vibrations. I find it curious that somebody's actually thought out what it's like to be a gelatinous cube, but potentially. Of course, we GCs have no odor. That must be why delvers sniff so hard right before we fall upon them. Actually, that's a good point. Can you smell a gelatinous cube? If so, some sort of axe for cubes would be in order. Yeah, okay. Explain to me how you're going to make a pseudopod and spray the button to spray axe for cubes all over you. Not going to happen. A smart cube would corner the market. Pun registered only on second reading. Do gelatinous cubes smell? In both cases, the word, goddamn puns, odor descriptions can be useful to set atmosphere in the theater of the mind, but consider dragon's musk on gold. Maybe some people refuse to take dragon stink coins because of allergies or superstitions, so species are limited in who they can spend dragon tainted gold with. Well, that's an interesting idea. Maybe you'd have to fence it for 20 cents on the dollar. Wouldn't that suck? But if you were a smart gnome or dwarf and had some method of burying them in certain things and removing the stank, well, hey, that's a good way to make a buttload of money. And PCs might fail a saving throw against dragon reek treasure, find themselves spread eagle atop the booty, dragon-like, berserkerly ready to devour party members that try to take their share. Well, yeah, okay, you can do any of those kind of things, have a spell there, and if they fail it, they go berserk and do those things. He says that, let's see, there's some more interesting things here. 3 odors could be siren-like pleasures, overwhelming PVC senses, such that they hypnotize the fail-saved, causing them to lose their wills and act on the behalf of the dragon. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and yeah, Tolkien had some weird dragon effects on what they did to the dwarves, and Burroughs had a creature that floated on odors while consuming them, following the scent trails through the air. Yeah, that's all great, and that's what we always encourage people is there's something neat in a book, grab it, steal it, put it in your game, and hopefully the rest of the players hadn't read it. I have no idea what's going on, and if one of them has, they can't. You can't let them metagame. Okay, can clerics be evil? Well, of course, anybody can be evil. Therefore, any healing they perform requires some evil turn from the patient that somehow glorifies the evil cleric's evil god or religion. Maybe pick up a few converts along the way. Okay. Number one, I would never have an evil cleric as part of the group, the adventuring group, the murder hobos. Wouldn't do it. I don't mix that kind of alignment. I don't do that kind of alignment mix. I don't want to be the referee pulling the children apart all the time. If they would run into an evil cleric, and they're not evil, it's highly unlikely that the evil cleric would agree to heal them. And if he was somehow coerced into doing it, which would be difficult in the extreme, he could disguise his heal as a heal, but it's really a rot. And in 24 hours, they're going to be twice as ill because he suppressed the whatever. I don't foresee an evil cleric performing a cure or a heal on a good character. Now, if they're doing it on their fellow evil guys, well, yeah, no problem. I don't see it happening. It would be certainly an extraordinary circumstance. And because of the alignments and all that stuff involved, probably wouldn't go well. Okay, wouldn't the fire-breathing dragons periodically dispose of their sewage by igniting it in a cave that is a big furnace with a chimney? Well, if you are assuming that your dragon in your campaign has extensive knowledge of HVAC and chimneys and flues and drafts and all that kind of stuff, well, yeah, okay. But only the very old dragons, become really wise. Okay, the rest of them are just slobs, kind of like boys in college. What? Okay, another question. What if instead of a cave, it's a chamber within the body? The sewage is fuel for the breath weapon they want to vomit out. They then have to eat to recharge it. Well, this one got some comments and replies from other readers and listeners. I don't know any healthy animal or creature ever that farts and shits out of its mouth. But if that's your idea of a dragon, then it's entirely plausible in D&D. Next comment. Some really weird Latin names. Meniopsis letii comes to mind. Pelodiscus sinensis is a species of turtles that pees out of its mouth. If your definition of an animal expands to the micro world, there's lots of examples there. Yeah, okay, and I know the turtle that breathes through its tail. So, it's fantasy. You can do what you like. Not a problem. However, I regurgitating sewage as fire, I find physically repugnant. Maybe they don't make sewage because they convert everything they eat to the fuel for their fire or something like that. I buy into that. Of course, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a bunch of imaginary stuff. Okay. All right. This is a discussion about avoiding metagaming for tricky concepts. Specifically, in this case, dealing with a room that moves. You have a dungeon room away in, perhaps the third or fourth room on the map. Once the PCs enter, the door they pass through seals shut with such force that the PC's torches go out. Once the torches are relit, the characters are free to move through the room, but every time they take a step, the room itself moves, changing location on the map. There could be doors to reach for, or only one door. There may be objects to inspect, or colored floor tiles showing trails to encourage movement. The motivation is fun, novelty, although it could be a useful plot device. Okay, so the central question about this is how could you convey to the PCs the gimmick of this room? Well, that'd be really tough. And if it was Gary doing it, it'd probably take you 5 sessions, because he never gave away anything. As soon as well, you got so much stuff going on here in this room. If they take every time they take a step and it moves on the map, first you decide whether or not they get a faint sense of movement, even though they're all standing still in the room. I would give a dwarf or an elf, because of their uh, suprahuman abilities about movement and levels and stuff, I'd give them a chance to realize that the movement was going on. If when they do get to a door and open it, it's not where they came from, well, there's lots of teleporting rooms or rooms with teleports in them or whatever. It's not a new concept. Sorry to burst your bubble. It's really no different than having a room that simply teleports you at random to different rooms around the dungeon, in that you moved randomly, willy-nilly from one place to another. That's a tough one to figure out. It might take them a while. But if that's what you want to do, well, then don't cut them any slack. Make them figure it out. Okay. Another question. Would you just explain the situation? No. Let them try to figure it out. Would you narrate the feeling of the room moving? Yes, I would. I would give I'd have, not necessarily the humans, unless they had, extraordinary ratings, but somebody would get a little queasy or a little vertiginous and go, wait a minute, we just moved, and then let them figure out from that. That's something. Boy, this guy's just torturing the hell out of me. Or if pure magic moves the room, would you allow? Yeah, I would allow, depending upon how. You can't just move them around. They got to be able to figure out how to get back to where they were. Otherwise, you're doing something like Tower of Gygax with no hope of ever coming back. Just going from place to place and killing stuff until you're dead. Groundhog Day he brings up here as an idea. It keeps going back to the same thing. I think Gary had a room like that every time he came out the door, it was the same thing again. Well before Groundhog Day. There's so much stuff going on there that I don't know. I can't really answer that with any degree of certainty because I don't know how I would handle it. I generally don't put stuff in that just screws with the players just for the sake of screwing with them. Now, if I can create a backstory that would justify having some sort of trap or whatever, well, then certainly I would do it. But I would have to have a justification in my mind of why it was there. I've written a couple of things that have weird traps and things that get triggered, alarms that get triggered, but I also have backstories for them. Is it possible the introduction of the illusionist class and all the illusion, phantasm, charm, and influence spells was bad for the game? Yes and no. How many times has a game master had to handle a player's character believing they are surrounded by a wall of fire, but the player knows it's an illusion because they just failed a saving throw? Or where the party is in combat, but the fighter had to suddenly roleplay believing the any spellcaster is his new best friend, and why can't we just get along? Well, the illusionist is a very, very, very tough class. I can't see why anybody would want to play it as a PC. I used to have lots of fun with it as an NPC, but I can't possibly see. In one of Doug Ray's infamous celebrity games down at North Texas RPG Convention a few years back, I was given a first-level illusionist character with a spell that didn't really hurt anybody unless you believed it hurt you. I spent the entire adventure in a I was a little person. I spent it in a large basket off the side of a horse with Sandy Peterson on the other side of the horse, also in a large basket, because he was also a small person with nothing. we couldn't do diddly unless we could fool some. I could fool somebody. Um, I think low-level illusionists are bogus as a player character, as a player class, character class. I think they're silly. When illusion spells were first created, I don't know. Might have been in a Conan story or one of the others, but in some story, the hero was fooled by an illusion, but somehow a glass of wine or something got splashed in their face, and the alcohol in their eyes dispelled the illusion. Well, for the next several months, everybody playing D&D was running around. D&D was running around with red-rimmed eyes because every time they went in a room, they splashed something in their face. Say, "Is it real? Is it real? Is it real?" And so, after a little bit of this, their eyesight was so impaired that other stuff started slipping by them. I think they're great tools for the DM to use as NPCs. The charm spell I have no problem with whatsoever for anybody. None whatsoever. Charm is can be explained as simply as low level hypnotism. What else? One of those influence spells, phantasms. Those are all good, legitimate weapon types to scare people up. Phantasmic spell, Wizard of Oz, the big fiery head, scared the hell out of them the first time until they realized it was the guy behind the curtain was making it. There's a bunch of character classes in D&D now that I think are silly. Illusionist, I don't believe needs to be a character class. I think it would be so hard to advance that it's just be next to impossible. I discovered another technique painting, and again, this all goes. You have to be using a slick primer. This time I did it on metal, and I was decided I was going to paint an elf archer, female elf archer, and with the slick surface again, I got out my green, and you can see that I got a mottled green out of it, green and lighter green and almost white, and then dry brushed over with some brown, and have a cloak that's essentially camouflaged in the forest. Again, wet brush on a slick surface. Now I'm going to wax philosophical. I've had several conversations with other people in the game business over the last several days and discussed this. And there's a word, a concept, a principle, I'm not sure exactly how to define it, that came out that made D&D happen and has now permeated virtually every video game on the market. And that is the word experience. I dare say that somebody in the Bronstein campaign associated that Green Knight figure as being experienced because he'd survived 4 battles and therefore became a superhero. First promotion. Based on experience, based on having survived some battles. Okay, I know they're toys, etc. But look at that. Experience. So you acquire experience, you become stronger. More hit points. Better able to wield a weapon. Etc. 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 Now let's go to every video game that has characters or first-person shooters, and they all get experience to become greater, stronger, bigger, faster, whatever. And then there's games like Train Station. Now, I've been playing Train Station since I got cancer and was in chemo and all that. It's about 4 years now. And I'm level 838 because I've acquired experience along the way. I haven't done anything but push buttons and send trains out, all right? But having done it over a long period of time, it's experience. Experience isn't the only thing that the video game whole concept owes to role-playing. Lives, hit points, advancements. But it's that concept of experience that is really the one that permeates all the computer games and electronic games. Experience. All because somebody in Minneapolis made the leap of intuition that that character, and I should point out that the Bronstein campaign was an ongoing thing, and they had leaders, named leaders, and named captains, you know, and whatever. And so I'm sure that Green Knight had a name, Baron so-and-so, and because he had gone through 4 battles and lived, he had experience, and therefore became a superhero, and therefore started that whole ball rolling. Interesting, isn't it, the way that happened? And now you can't get away from experience. They may use a slightly different word, but the concept remains the same. Experience. Do it over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you'll get better at it. That's the theory. Anyway, some talk about people want to know when we think face-to-face cons will come back. In March, in September. I don't think it'll be March. If Gary Kahn goes ahead doing what they were going to do and do social distancing and limit to 1,500 people, etc., I still can't tell you right now whether or not I would attend. Right now, I would lean against it. Every time I see some sophomoric asshole ranting about you can't make me wear a mask or anything, you know, and behave like that, I want to just punch him in the face. But of course, that won't make him any smarter, and eventually my hand will hurt. But I can't trust that 1,500 people showing up at GaryCon are all going to be socially distant. They're all going to be washing their hands. They're all going to be keeping their masks on and that. I don't have that much trust in my fellow man, not even my fellow gamer. There's too many gamers. For one thing, there's too many gamers that are on the other side of the fence from me. And it's that other side of the fence that's the one railing against the masks. And if, I don't think it's going to happen. Fauci just went on TV again tonight and warned that we're going to have another spike because we're going to be moving indoors because of the colder weather. It's going to be flu season, which is going to mean a lot of people are going to get them both. We don't have the herd immunity yet. There's too many idiots and morons that don't understand about, social distancing and masks and washing and what have you. They can't see beyond the end of their outraged noses. I don't think we're going to have cons again anytime soon. I'm doing something in the new model. I should say, go to the North Texas RPG Con and look at September 20th. And I'm doing a free Wheel of Blame, just to expose people to the game and the way it's played in that. And I will be doing probably a couple a month through their continual website. I believe I'll probably do something for Autumn Revel. Haven't worked that out yet. I don't have a problem with doing games virtually. Rather do them in person, but I'm glad to do them virtually. And I think we're probably going to be looking at probably close to another year of virtual gaming. I just don't think, I don't have enough faith in my fellow American citizen to do the right thing and to follow the guidelines. I just don't. And makes me sick to my stomach to say that. Saddens me a great deal. And on that downer note, I guess we'll end it. Go to dragonsfoot.org and check out for some light reading. And there's some good stories and how this happened, how that happened. And again, if somebody goes and says, no, there's absolutely nothing about your world, well, then I'll dig it up and I'll post it somewhere and share it. In the meantime, stay safe, mask, sneeze, wash, Dodatagobi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.